the operating theatre I'd heard about. My drunken intention of giving him feedback turned into a drunken bid to be friendly. I can't remember what really transpired in our conversation that night, but if my vague feelings of concern the next morning were anything to go by, it was wholly inappropriate and extremely embarrassing. Thankfully, I was saved by the interjection of Max, who dragged me away with the zinger, "God, stop this conversation now. We aren't having him over for a drink. And anyway, he's ugly." "I'm right here," Heart Doc 82 said, sounding faintly amused as I was pulled into an Uber and taken back to the safety of our run-down old sharehouse's toilet bowl. I didn't run into Heart Doc 82 again. So when some years later he slid into my DMs with a "long time no talk, your Insta is a little bare. I remember the hospital ball, lol," I didn't think too much of it. I'd only downloaded Instagram to try to promote my book. This didn't work as I never accumulated many followers, but it did provide Heart Doc 82 with an avenue to get in touch. My friend Loretta, more experienced in matters of the gram than me, assured me that random reach-outs from people you haven't seen in years are perfectly acceptable, and that's just the way Instagram works. Clearly, I was behind the times. Instagram messages with Heart Doc 82 led to real messages, his suggestion, which led to phone calls, his idea, then FaceTime, his insistence. Then emails, then a fully fledged virtual friendship. It was a little weird that this bloke I'd met only once, when I was so drunk I could barely remember my own name, seemed to want to speak to me this much. But, I reasoned, I was a doctor who had written about the hardships of medicine, so maybe he figured he could be more honest with me than with most of his colleagues. I received quite a lot of correspondence from disenchanted medics, so Heart Doc 82's reach-out wasn't too surprising. The world of heart surgery sounded brutal, and he genuinely seemed to need a kind ear. I'd always been a sucker for friendships with other lost souls in medicine, and I guess if you begin as friends, you feel as if you genuinely know somebody, which makes the next step into an IRL relationship feel more natural. And that's how it went. He was interstate for a while, so he was also hard to keep track of. It was the nature of the job. It did mean, though, that our paths wouldn't unintentionally cross. But that didn't really matter because communication was so easy and regular. "You're the only person I can talk to about everything. I've never met anyone like you," he told me after admitting he'd felt ashamed about not attending a patient's funeral. He'd wanted to go, he said, but decided against it for fear his colleagues may think less of him for showing emotion, something that was unusual, I was learning, for a cardiac surgeon. His life was also complicated in a way mine wasn't, but I was happy to listen and offer my own insights. Actually, I felt quite sorry for him. He had a child, I knew, and there'd been a nasty separation. This wasn't surprising. Doctors have notoriously high rates of divorce, and their breakups can be especially messy. A hazard of the job, apparently. Once, Loretta, suspicious of his fondness for texting, and peculiar habit of only FaceTiming me from the hospital, made me ask him point blank if he was still married and living with his wife. He flatly denied it, confirming the separation and bemoaning the struggles of co-parenting. From the vague due diligence I'd performed with people who knew him from the hospital, it all seemed pretty legitimate. There was no reason not to believe him. His hours were weird and, God, so long. There was nothing suspicious on his Instagram page. Actually, there was barely anything on his Instagram page, which should have been a warning. But I just thought he was busy and not very sociable. And he was so young for the terrible responsibility he had, a fully fledged heart surgeon shy of his 40th birthday. It amazed me, his proximity to life and death at such a tender age. He also had a strange melancholia about him, a sadness in his soul. And what's more irresistible than someone who needs saving? A heart surgeon who needed his heart saved.